Natalie Thompson, and I just turned 29 last week.
And what are you doing right now to make the world a better place?
Well, I like to say I'm working on a couple of different levels, locally, nationally, and internationally. Currently, I work at the National Human Services Assembly. I'm the policy director, and the main part of my job, besides public policy, is to run a coalition of youth-serving organizations within the National Assembly, and it's called the National Collaboration for Youth. And there are about 50 national youth-serving organizations like the Y, Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and United Way Worldwide.
And what kind of work do you do with the National Collaboration for Youth?
We work in two ways, really public policy and research. One of our signature issues is called the White House Office of Children and Youth, or the Federal Youth Coordination Act, which basically would create an executive level office in the White House to oversee national youth issues and create a national youth strategy and agenda.
Cool. And how did you get into this work? What kind of inspired you to work with young people?
Sure. I think I always had it in me. I was always encouraged to volunteer since a very young age. I used to put together kids' newspapers in my neighborhood when I was like 9 or 10 years old, and try to get other kids in my neighborhood to write for them and distribute them. I did a lot of volunteering when I was young, and I always thought it was really unfair that kids, you can't control what neighborhood you're born into, what kind of family you're born into, or how you grow up. So I always thought that was really innately unfair, and I always really wanted to give a voice for children and youth.
Was there a particular event that kind of propelled you into this work, or a series of events?
I would say I always had a really, was really passionate about children and youth issues, but what really started me into politics and kind of civic engagement was my senior year of high school. I participated in a program called Presidential Classroom, which sent high school seniors to Washington, D.C. for a week to learn all about the federal government and policy and really to be leaders in the public sector. And so that really got me so excited about just kind of taking it to the next step.
Cool. And, you work with a really wide variety of youth-serving organizations. What are some ways that you've had to work across traditional boundaries to get things done?
Well, I would say just looking at our organizations, they are a huge variety of organizations, and you wouldn't think, looking at the list, some that would work together. And so it would surprise you. Youth issues, I think, is rather than a lot of other social issues, are a little bit less divisive for the most part. So organizations that you wouldn't normally think would work together, we bring together, and they find common ground. Also, another example of that is I volunteer with a group. It's actually, I have a meeting in our office today, the Campaign on the Rights of the Child, and they're all about getting the U.S. to ratify the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And that group is a great example of a diverse group because it's liberal groups, church groups, attorneys, it's everyone and anyone, and they all come together around this issue of children's rights. So.
Great. What are some of the most pressing challenges you see facing kind of our generation or young people today?
I think not to be apathetic in politics is one. If you look, I was so excited in the 2008 elections when the youth vote came out, and it's going to start this new trend. It's great. Social media and the internet has really allowed youth to connect in a way that they couldn't when I was a youth 10 years ago. But then I was a little disappointed in the midterm elections that just happened the other week. The youth vote really wasn't there. So I would say keep the excitement that you had in 2008 and keep being engaged in politics, and don't let that go. Don't let that excitement go. And
last question to follow up kind of is, what advice do you have for a young person who wants to get more involved in their communities, political participation, youth mobilization? What would you tell them?
Sure. Well, first, it starts in your own backyard. So connect to your local youth-serving organizations and nonprofits in your area and find out kind of what the situation is for youth in your neighborhood and see how you can make the most difference and get involved. And then also use social media, use the internet. They're great sites. We're partners on a site called sparkaction.org. There's also a ton of sites like change.org where you can get on, you connect, you can learn about issues internationally for youth, what the situation is, and get involved in all different sorts of ways. And you can find, what aspect of youth engagement you're really excited about.